Welcome to the FMC Lounge, everyone. I am your host, Joe for Show, and in this video, we're going to be going to my updated Sharen guide. In this video, I'll be covering mutant cells, arcade tuning, external component cores, and all the builds I use for her. If y'all can do me a favor, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. It will help with the YouTube algorithm. I'd appreciate it a lot. Now, enough of the yapping. Let's jump straight into the video. Now, if you weren't aware, on July 3rd, multiple Descendants got a buff. One of them was Sharen. Her cutoff beam, the increased power from 1364 to 1681. So slight, damage increase. Her active camouflage, which is her second ability, you get movement speed increase from 20 to 30%. Shock nuts, which is her third ability, just the base damage, no transcendent mod, whatever. It's 288.7 to 949. So it's a nice jump, but it's not anything, insane game breaking or whatever. The ambush module, transcendent mod, it increases her second ability movement speed from 40% instead of 30% from right here. Her other transcendent mod, overcharged edge module, it gives you 30% movement speed instead of 20. And then her other transcendent mod, area suppression module, per short sword does 252 damage instead of 184. Now honestly, instead of damage increase, I would like to see a better tracking or more swords that come out. The problem with her fourth ability when you use this transcendent mod is not the damage, it's the tracking of the swords. Now for our first build, it's going to revolve around area suppression. If you don't know what this does, it completely changes the fourth ability, where instead of it's a tracking one, you're stationary and you track and it shoots at enemy, you spin around and it's like an AoE attack. Now before we go over the mods, go ahead, get your screenshots. We are running 1 HP mod, 1 range mod, a 2 focus mod, focus on fusion, focus on electric, because our fourth ability is a fusion archetype and electric element. We're running danger ambush because when we're invis, the enemies are not going to be targeting us, so we're going to get that skill power bonus. We are running emergency measures, skill concentration, front lines, and then 2 cooldown mods. We're only running 3 crit hit damage mods because the way that active camouflage work, we're going to get a 22% increase, and we're also using the blue beetle, which I will cover in a little bit. For our reactor, we are using a fusion electric reactor. My 2 stats at the bottom, I wanted skill cooldown, skill crit hit damage. I think it's the best. You could probably change the cooldown for something else, like maybe fusion to get a little bit more damage. It's preference, up to you, do what you want. For our components, I am running the 4-piece Slayer set just so I could get that 26% extra damage. I highly recommend make sure your sensor has max MP. It will let you help spam your abilities more. For the external component cores, we're running HP and defense, HP and defense, HP and defense, HP and defense. For our weapon, we are using the blue beetle, and the reason why, because of the unique ability. Whenever you use a fusion skill, you grant yourself arcane energy unique ability, and what arcane energy does, it gives you 115% skill critical hit rate for 10 seconds, and it's 100% trigger rate. So this is how we are going to always have 100% skill critical hit rate. Recently, blue beetle got a buff, so all these cores, substats, and mods you see, this was before the buff. This is just what I always had on. I haven't tested the new blue beetle, so if you're gonna use these stats as a reference, just remember this was before the blue beetle got a buff. I had all these things on prior, months ago. Okay, so here are the cores and the substats, and here are the mods. Remember, like I said, all of this was before blue beetle got a buff. Other weapon of choice is last dagger. I'm mainly only using this to kill like the yellow bar enemies if I feel like my skills aren't doing enough damage. Are the cores and the substats, and then here are the mods. Again, you change these elements to whatever the enemy is weak to. Here's our other weapon. It's a smithereen. Here's the cores, and here are the substats. You don't need fire attack. I have that on because I use this weapon for ice mating with Serena. Instead of fire attack, you would go for crit hit damage. And then here are the mods. Again, you would change these to whatever the enemy is weak to. For our inversion reinforcement, you change this to whatever the enemy is weak to, or you cannot run it at all and you can just run something else, probably like this. Whenever you hit an enemy with skill, you're going to help with your cooldown, so you can run this instead of running these element mods if you want. I also run biodensity just to get more HP from killing enemies, and then I run a general rush just for movement speed so I can try to keep up with the bunny because she's just too fast for us now. For the arcade tuning, similar to like most builds, I went as much raw skill power as I can. I did not go for this cooldown. I felt it was more important to get these crit hit damage and the crit hit rate. For our mutant cell, we're using electric cohesion. Whenever you defeat enemies, you're gonna get these stacks, do a little bit more electric skill damage. You can take this off and rock electrocution vulnerability instead. Just preference, do whatever one you feel works for you. Here's a quick little gameplay of me showing you how the area suppression mobbing build works. For our next build, it's going to be another mobbing build. It's going to revolve around ambush. What this does, it modifies so that when we kill an enemy, it's going to activate a camouflage, which return user to the same state. And active camouflage, we're going to get increased agility, the movement speed that you see in the patch notes, and it completely changes our third ability. So here are the mods. Go ahead, get your screenshots. We'll cover them in a few seconds. So without that Descendant mod, our third ability, it's an electric element and dimension archetype. But when you equip the ambush mod, it completely changes the third ability, and it's a fusion archetype now. It's not dimension. And since it's fusion, our first ability is fusion, our fourth ability is fusion. We run a fusion reactor and just make this do a lot more damage. Now for the mods, it's basically the same as last build. Nothing changes. For the reactor, it's the same as before. Nothing changes. Electric fusion with skill cooldown and critical hit damage. For our components, it's the same as before. We're running a 4-piece layer, so we can have that 26% extra skill power, and an external component core, HP and defense, HP and defense, HP and defense. One thing that changes here, we're using the Kingsguard lance, and the main reason why, this helps us keeps our camouflage up almost all the time, and it's just another way of helping us clear ads better for the high density activity like 400% or Sigma. For the component core and stats, here you go. And here are the mods. I am using this weapon more as a CC, crowd control, to slow the enemies down and stuff. It's going to do a little bit of damage, but not a lot. I'm not making this a full damage weapon. If you want a full damage weapon guide for the Kingsguard lance, I highly recommend go look at a Moxie video. He did a video covering the Kingsguard lance where it's just all about damage for his Sharen build. Our last dagger, it's the same as before. You know, here's the cores, and then here are the mods. And then for our smithereen, and here's the cores, then here are the substats, and then here are the mods. And then version reinforcement, it is the same. If for some reason you feel like you MP is an issue, you can take out bio density. You can run this one instead to give yourself some MP if you want. For the arche tuning, it is the same as before. Nothing changes. We're still rocking electric cohesion for your mutant cell, and you know, as much skill power as possible. And here's a quick little gameplay of how the ambush mobbing build works. For our next build, this is going to be for Void, Erosion, Purge. It's going to revolve around ambush again. Here are the mods. Go ahead and get your screenshots. It's sort of similar as before, as you can see. Only a few stuff changes. We went strong mentality. We want skill costs so we can spam our abilities more. We went MP collector so we could, you know, help us spam our abilities more in the Void, Erosion, Purge. We're not running no HP mods, so we are kind of squishy, but we're gonna overcome that with the Kingsguard lance, which I'll go over in a few seconds. We changed the 2 focus mods to fusion specialist and electric specialist if you want as much damage as possible. But if you do feel like it's an issue, you can just throw on some focus mods. Just gonna lose a little bit of damage, but it's just up to you. Do what fits best for you. For the reactor, same as before, nothing changes. Electric fusion and substats, skill cooldown, skill crit hit damage. For the component cores, it's the same as before. We're running Slayer set for that extra skill power damage at 26%. And then our external component cores, HP and defense, HP and defense, HP and defense. And again, we're running Kingsguard lance. This is why I made this gun strictly for Purge, and I made it as a CC, a crowd control, which I talked about in my last build. This is why we went a chill, a legion, a darkness, so it can do a little bit more damage in Purge because the enemies are legion of darkness and they are weak to chill. So here are the substats and the cores, and then here are the mods. If anybody's wondering what you call it, these mods right here, chill, circulation, and frigid burn and snowflake, they don't work with the Kingsguard lance. The unique ability when you set your little totem and the shocking enemy that's in the range, that doesn't activate these. This only activates when you're constantly shooting them with the laser. If you're not shooting with the laser, those mods don't activate. This right here, it does not activate those mods, so this is why we're not using them. For our other weapon, we're using last dagger. Make sure to chill. Like I said, enemies are weak to chill in the Void Purge. Here are the cores and the substats, and then here are my mods. For inversion reinforcement, you want to make sure you are running chill focus rounds for your weapons to do a little bit more damage, especially your last dagger. biodensity for more HP, and I'm using this for movement speed. If you don't want to, you can take this off. You could go here for a little bit more defense, or if you feel like mana is an issue, you can go here for more mana instead. And then for the arcade tuning, it's the same as the other two builds. Nothing changes. Run crit hit, most crit damage possible, because most of our damage is going to come from our skill power. From our abilities, we're not using the King Guard's Lance for damage. I'm using the King Guard Lance to slow the enemies and freeze them. For the mutant cell, we are still running electric cohesion. Here's a quick little gameplay of me showing you how the Void Erosion Purge build works. Now for our last build, it's going to be a bossing build. It's going to revolve around Overcharge Edge. Now this build is strictly for Hardboard Colossus. It's not for Ice Maiden. I'm not covering Ice Maiden no more. She's about to disappear on August 7th, so there's no reason to make any builds for Ice Maiden right now when we're getting a new Abyss boss. Now for the mods, this is all it is. You actually don't even need to run its HP. You could just throw on another shield mod so you can do a little bit more damage. This is all you need, and the reason why I say that is because we're using ATAMs with this build. Now, if you weren't going to use ATAM, you're going to use a different type of gun like Greg or the new Devotion buff or even Smithereen. Then you would, take off Overcharge Edge, you would put Ambush on, and you would run all these mods instead. 2 focus mods and then another 2 focus mod. This is going to allow us to get our first ability on a 1.3 cooldown, so we can spam it, which is going to proc Conditional Recharge, which is going to lower our health under half, which is going to proc Walker Type Rope, where we do more firearm damage because our HP is under 50%. Now this is only for not using ATAM. You can use any other type of weapons. For your reactor, the element doesn't matter. You can use any different element. Just make sure the substats have cooldown on it, which will help your versatility. You probably could get away without it, but just to be safe. And then for your component cores, you run whatever you want. It doesn't matter which component you use. The boss is going to die in 5 seconds or less, depending on if you're using ATAM or a different type of weapon. For my ATAM, here are the cores and the substats. Then here are the mods. So these element mods I had on for the last Void Abyss boss, not the Ice Maiden one, but the electric one a few months ago. So don't worry about this. You can put any element that you feel comfortable, or something else if you want. And then if you're not using the Overcharge Edge and using Ambush, here's the last dagger. Here are the cores and substats. You would want the element to match whatever the enemy is weak to. And then for here are the mods. Again, you would want these elements to match whatever the enemy is weak to. For our version reinforcement, we're using strike point application for the multi-hit. If your gun has multi-hit, you want to use it. If it does not have multi-hit, you could take this off for something else. And then whatever the boss is weak to, this is the element that you want to use. And then we have one free open spot. I don't know what to put it to, because like I said, the boss dies in 5 seconds, so there's really nothing for you to use it on. But if you find something, just equip it to whatever you like. For the arcade tuning, this is what we went with. I could, get rid of these 4 and go for this. Problem is that mutant cell, it doesn't give us the defensive mutant cell, which is this one that I'm talking about right here, which will allow us to do more damage. This one right here, because if you notice, it's an M slot, and if you come back and look at our arcade tuning, it's a C slot. So there's no mutant cell to use in my opinion, but if you can find one for something right here, go ahead and put it, but this is just how I have it for now. And here's a quick gameplay of me showing you how the gun bossing build works. If you need a reactor for Sharen, check the pinned comment down below. I'll have a YouTube short showing where you can farm a reactor for Sharen. But that's gonna be it for the video. Hopefully this guide helps you decide on if you want to build Sharen or what kind of build you want to make with her. But on that note, I'll catch y'all in the next video.